Well, happy Wednesday night. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you guys so much, as always, for being with us. We really appreciate you. Again, business in front. We want to make sure to get everybody to subscribe to WDWNT TV. Subscribe for yourself, your kids, your hamsters, everybody. And then also make sure to like this video as it helps people to find us. And tonight we've got a panel of people ready to talk about, I don't know, dare I say one of the best movies of all time? Is that possible? Featuring Mr. Patrick Hackett. How are you?
I don't know if I've watched the right thing. The people were looking for a Grail, but there was a lot of singing, and they went to Camelot. It was a really silly place. It doesn't seem to be this one.
Was it Mrs. Davis? Is that what you were watching?
It had a guy's name and a snake.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing.
Monty Cobra.
Yeah, hold that thought.
Hey! All right.
It's not landing. And of course, Ron Deanna. Ron Deanna, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for that energy, man. I really appreciate it. Look, so tonight we had actually done a deal where we went into the chat and we said, hey, we're going to do an Indiana Jones movie because, as you all know, Dial of Destiny hits theaters on June 30th. And we're like, let's talk about Indiana Jones ahead of time. And we asked the chat, what do you want to watch? And I was like, the movie before that was the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Why don't we do that one? And everybody's like, no. Patrick, you don't hate Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, right? You just kind of despise it?
I'm having a moment with that because I started to watch it again, and it's actually worse than I remember it. Because I was like, it's not that bad. And now I'm watching it again, and yeah, no, it's that bad. It's truly awful.
So how do you really feel about it, though?
I'm gonna finish watching it, so it's not that terrible. Because there's movies I haven't finished watching. I am gonna finish it.
Okay, all right.
Have you got to the monkey scene yet? Because that's all I remember. People talk about nuking the fridge, but Shia LaBeouf Tarzaning it is what killed that movie for me.
I mean, valid. That's valid. So, I mean, there are a lot of different thoughts on these movies, but just recently these actually came to Disney Plus. So we've got the Indiana Jones collection, which says exclusively theaters on theaters June 30th in the Dial of Destiny, and then we've got Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, the one we're talking about tonight, which is the Last Crusade, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and then there is a special look at Dial of Destiny, but also Young Indiana Jones. I want to talk about that for a second because Young Indiana Jones, it wasn't like a half-hour show. It was an hour. It was basically a 2-hour show. It was like a movie every week for like 22 episodes. Ron, did you ever watch that?
I watched a couple of them. Never really got into it. I don't remember much of them. And I remember, I think it wasn't River Phoenix, so that kind of lost it for me at that point. I know some people think they're great. Maybe I'll go and give them a shot. But I just finished watching the trilogy, and I need to watch Crystal Skull before tomorrow night. But maybe I'll get around to it after that.
So you're also that kind of guy that goes in and studies ahead of time.
I don't think I watch these every year, like say the Star Wars movies. So I did want to brush up, but I don't think I've watched these since they came out on 4K. And there's definitely things I noticed in some like background shots. I'm like, I haven't seen that before.
What an absolutely beautiful movie it is.
Which one?
Yeah,
Last Crusade.
Any of them.
Just gorgeous.
So let's back up a second and talk about this movie. It opens up with young Indiana Jones-ish, with River Phoenix, as you mentioned, and we are like learning the history of how he got involved in archaeology, and we learn about his dad. When that all starts, you don't know. What I love about that opening scene is you don't know. Like, it's a misdirect. You think that Indiana Jones is the guy who is doing the treasure hunting in the caverns. And I remember thinking that the first time, like, wow, he doesn't quite look the same. And then, at that reveal where he kind of lifts his head up and you're like, well, wait a minute, that's not Harrison Ford. Then they kind of go immediately up to the rafters where River Phoenix is with his friend, and he's like, Indy. So, like, you're learning immediately what's going on there. But, like, you're talking about being a beautiful movie, but directing-wise, every shot as I'm watching it, like has this sort of reveal to it. It seems like, and I loved every time that happened, and it was so good to me that it was noticeable. Thoughts, Patrick?
It was Spielberg in his prime. I was thinking the
Oh,
same thing. Like every shot's so well composed. I mean, right now between like this and then you have Jurassic Park and Schindler's List, like this. I mean, he's been great since Jaws, but this is just him at the height of his power, at the height of everything he's done. Right at this point.
the height of his power. That's
I'm with him. I'm with him. This is like the most Spielbergy movie that there is. I think. I think this is just him being at the top of his game. Um, the reveals you were talking about were spot on. The little jokes when they walk by the Ark of the Covenant. Are you sure? Yeah, it's just perfect. And apparently, Spielberg felt bad. I am way low in the frame. I need to fix that. But Spielberg felt bad that Temple of Doom got such a rough review and really came out guns blazing with this one. He and Lucas worked really hard on this.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to say too. Is that it was like an apology for the Temple of Doom, and Temple of Doom, the first movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, feels perfect to me. It was it's the one that introduces us to Indiana Jones. It's like, oh my gosh, it's Han Solo up there, but then so quickly you go, no, that's Indiana Jones. You buy into it immediately. It's so good. And then Temple of Doom comes along. I remember going and seeing it in the theater, and then going, that was kind of gross. It was kind of all over the place. I don't love Temple of Doom. I don't know anybody who loves Temple of Doom except for the people who were in it. You love Temple of Doom?
I love
you guys both.
I have no problem with it. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up with it. Like, I didn't go see it in theaters. I was when did it come out? 84, 85?
I
So
think so.
So right around like I remember watching it with
84.
my dad on video right after it came out. So it was probably about I was probably about 4. I never thought it was any scarier or darker than parts of Raiders. Like the end scene of Raiders, I think is scarier than anything in Temple of Doom. Even though Temple of Doom and Poltergeist are responsible for the PG-13 rating.
Yeah.
I think it was great, and also the fact that we've gotten a couple Indiana Jones rides, including a roller coaster, that just wasn't that movie, which still blows my mind.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Patrick, why do you love Temple of Doom?
I feel like that was my first introduction to Indiana Jones. I feel like I may have seen it on TV before this one came out. I was about 8 when Last Crusade came out. I might have gone to see it in theaters, but I vividly remember Temple of Doom. It's burned into my memory. It's like a childhood core memory. And I love Clerks, the animated series. If you've never seen Clerks, the animated series, and their takes on Temple of Doom, it's really awesome. It's one of my favorite episodes of that underrated, brilliant show.
I think I mentioned,
friendly.
yeah, right. I think I
Produced by
mentioned
Disney,
that,
though.
right. On Big Bang Theory, that they had an episode where Sheldon makes Amy watch Raiders of the Lost Ark because she's never seen it, and she's like, "Oh, that was a great movie, except for the one flaw." He's like, "No, what flaw are you talking about?" And she goes, "All of this would have happened if Indiana Jones had never been in the picture."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they would have still opened up, they would have still gotten the Grail, they would have still opened it up, and the same thing still would have happened. And I'm just like, I mean, that's true, but I mean, it's a great adventure movie. And one of the things about that movie too is it's a chase. The entire movie, it's a chase and a race to get to the Ark first. The second movie isn't that. It's not a chase. It's just they end up in this village, and they kind of spend most of their time there helping the kids, and they're there to get the stones back and all that stuff. And so then I'm looking at Last Crusade, and it feels like it's another chase movie, right? Because you've got there's several factions racing to try to get the Grail, this thing that's been lost for 1,000 years, and now like everybody's about to get it at the same time, like an episode of Cannonball Run. Kids, look it up. But I honestly,
I mean, the same thing is.
Go ahead.
It's the same kind of mirroring you see between New Hope and Jedi, with a darker in between chapter 2, even though the Indiana Jones movies are out of order. but it's the same kind of mirroring Lucas did of going back to close out a trilogy by kind of mirroring the first film.
Yeah, let me ask you this again. I'm only going to talk about Big Bang one more time. Did you ever see the episode where Howard and Raj started a band and their big hit song was Thor and Dr. Jones? If you have not heard that song, you need to look that up. It's Thor and Dr. Jones. One wields a hammer, the other one plays with bones. It's a really, yeah. It's real. It's real. You should look it up. But like as I'm watching this movie, I'm thinking of that as it's going on. But anyway, so we're introduced to Indy, young Indy, and then then there's again directorial wise, the guy puts the hat on Indy, and they're like, oh, okay, that's where the hat came from. And when he puts the hat on him, then the next scene is the hat comes up and it's now Harrison Ford, and it's not like some great transformation scene, but the directing of it is just beautiful, the way that they did that shot. And I feel like they didn't overdo any of that, but they did it a lot. And then, but everything we learned with River Phoenix as young Indiana Jones it's so funny. It's all of the things that make Indy what he is right now. The joke where the little snake is going across the kid and he picks up, he goes, it's just a snake. And we're like, oh, wait, we know Indy better than this. We know he's afraid of snakes. Why is he afraid of snakes? And then he falls into that reptile train car. And now he's just devastated by snakes from now on. And even tying in Harrison Ford's scar with the whip.
Oh, that's so brilliant. That whole scene, I know it's not a one shot, but it feels like a one shot. Like it just feels like you're with the action all of the time. And I like how we're getting all of the lore of Indiana Jones, and it's not being told to us. Show me, don't tell me. And I enjoy seeing that happen. It's just, man, the more I watch this, it's a damn near perfect movie.
Did you guys, as you're watching this, like quote a lot of it? Like I kept saying lines before they would come, and my wife was ready to kill me because of that. But anyway, I was like, okay, I'll stop. But I mean, this was such a quotable movie for me. Like just every bit of it, I love. Like when he's like, I don't know. I just every bit of it as it's going on, I'm just quoting it before it happens. Of course, the most famous line from this movie comes at the end, where it's like, "I named the dog Indiana." Like isn't that the most famous line from this movie? Can we?
I think he chose poorly.
Poorly
is the most famous line in the movie.
No ticket.
Yeah.
Right. Yep, and yes, exactly. Well, that was one of them that I quoted too. Yeah, because like he throws the guy out the window, and as he stems up, I look at my wife and go, "No ticket." I don't know. It's just so good. Like here's another thing about this movie is I could watch it over and over again because and I know I've seen it a bunch, and there are some movies like that. I think the Harry Potter movies feel that way sometimes, that you can just pick up in the middle and watch them. I think the Indiana Jones movies, for the most part, are kind of like that. Maybe it's just I don't know.
This is how it got fans that are that late Gen X, early millennial, is that these were on cable TV all the time. You could catch one of these movies on TNT, TBS. They were on, and they're great to watch. You can pick it up at any time, like you said, because there's so many mini stories going on that you're not really missing much. If you just watch the end of this movie and just the quest for the Grail at the very end, that's enough of a movie in and of itself. I think that's how you develop these lifelong fandoms, and I'm wondering, because of the on-demand nature of streaming, that you don't really luck your way into anything. I saw a meme a while ago. It's weird now with streaming that there's not that one VHS tape that your family had that became an identifying part of your personality because it's what you had. And I feel like I'm a little bit lucky to have grown up and just lucked into these movies and have them be ubiquitous and just be around and become a fan like that.
Nico in the chat is just dropping all the quotes, like the tapestries. It's so funny, and then the bit about the as much as the next guy, and he says I was the next guy. Like all that stuff that happens is just so good. So the span of these movies, the first one comes out in 81. The second one in '84, as we talked about before, and this one doesn't come out till 1989. Which, again, I feel like we talked about at the beginning, that Spielberg and Lucas got together and said, look, we're going to do this one right. And it feels like the end of a saga. And then here comes Crystal Skull. And it's like, did people ask for that? Ron, were you like...
I was super excited. I was there, first show, just like I'm going to be tomorrow night. I really thought, I was looking forward to, and one of the things I'll give it is it's a different, it's based off a different type of story, and it mimics a different type of story. These were obviously supposed to be 30s serials, and that goes with them being set in the 30s, like King Solomon's Mines, whatever like that. And then you move to Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and it does mirror a sci-fi 50s, Cold War kind of thing. I don't think it did it very well, but that's what it did. So I'm going to be interested to see if this plays into something from the time period we're talking. I think Dial of Destiny's 69, and now we're getting into kind of more modern, it's going to be a very depressing cinema style, very realism. So I want to see how this is going to mirror into that. Like 69, I can't think of like adventure films. We're talking about, things like...
Well, you're looking at like the
think of
late
60.
Disney pictures, you're looking at, well, I guess 20,000
like Kubrickian stuff.
Yeah.
But to that point, I feel like this started a pattern. No? Like, you're saying like this came off of serials and things like that, but this one felt like it started the pattern because you had the National Treasure movies and the Mummy movies.
Down the line, though.
But
you're
like
saying
the
this
Mummy
was the
movies,
start of that genre.
well, they feel very similar to me. The archaeology movies, and I don't know that I know of anything that happened like immediately before this, but
well, there were the King Solomon's Mines movies. They were in the '80s. They were kind of a knockoff. They were Alan Quartermain stuff. I mean, this took that and went with it. And then when people made something from that source material, it wasn't as good as this, just because, yeah, I mean, the first and the third movie are perfect adventure movies through and through. They tell you a story. You don't get, there's enough exposition, but they're using things that like people kind of had some concept of what they were, which is maybe another reason why Temple of Doom didn't do so well. People aren't familiar with Hindu mythology and things that go with that, so maybe there was a little heavy on the exposition, would slow it down at times. But most Western audiences are going to know what the Ark and the Grail were in some sort of concept.
That's true. So before we move on from the young Indy scene, just again to talk about that, we see his hubris with the whole "everybody's lost but me." Like that line seemed very purposeful of the whole like "I'm always right" sort of a thing. And then the whip, like he gets the whip, he gets the hat, he gets the scar, he gets the devastating fear of snakes, like and like all of that in one afternoon. He gets all of that, which as much as I hate, and I've talked about this before with Star Wars, that like there's no reason that young Anakin needed to have been the one to build C-3PO. That's just it's too much to me. Like it's a huge galaxy far away that you don't need all of them to have tied together and met at some point. They did that on Smallville. If you guys ever watched Smallville, every single solitary Superman person and Clark Kent person rolled through Smallville, Kansas. The fact that Lex Luthor happened to live in Smallville, Kansas, that doesn't make any sense. So this one, for some reason, I buy it. I'm down. What were you going to say, Patrick?
I mean, I think we've had afternoons like that have been seminal in making us who we are. It's a tough afternoon, but that seemed like a lot there. I think that Crystal Skull should have learned lessons from the prequel trilogy. I think that's far enough separate from that they should have learned a lot more than they did. You're right that this is a much better made film than the prequels, and that they knew that they didn't have to tie it all together, and if they did, they had to make it organic. And that's what's great about this. This doesn't feel like a galaxy far away. It doesn't feel like, a crazy sci-fi romp, which is what kind of happens with Crystal Skull. It feels down to earth and gritty, and we opened by saying how beautiful it is, and that dust and sand, it gets in there, and it's better than these movies that come out now that are just all shaded dark blue. Like, there's so much lived in that world, in this shot, and man, even though it's muted tones, it still really pops on the screen, and it feels like, sure, these are adventures that eventually the authorities would get involved in, but it doesn't ever feel like it's too big. You know what I'm saying? It feels like it's still like a local level. It's your friendly neighborhood archaeologist.
Friendly neighborhood archaeologist. One thing that I think is important to note too is there's just a cameo of Indy, like Indiana,
Yeah.
right? Like, I assume that's the dog that we're talking about, right? And they don't spend
It's
a
the
bunch
breed
of time
of
on
dog. I don't know if it's the exact dog. Also, the dog that is the inspiration for Chewbacca. A lot of money made on that dog.
it. Okay, all right. So anyway, so a lot of stuff happens to him, and then he gets on we see the scene where he has tracked down the cross again, and he finally gets it back, and he gets to put it in a museum, and that's great. Then we cut to the college. This is the first time we've seen Indy as a teacher, right?
No.
Oh, you mean because
Don't
of
we see him at the university in Raiders?
at the end of Raiders? You're right, but we don't see him teaching.
No, at the beginning.
Do we?
I don't know if he's teaching, but he's at the school when the feds come to talk to him.
Top men. Top. That's
And is it supposed to be Yale? Is that where he teaches?
No.
Because I thought that's where they filmed
in Crystal
it.
Skull. It is Yale. Like, it is 100%.
Yeah.
Like, it's filmed in New Haven. So,
But then when he's at Donovan's apartment in New York, he says, "You came down here." So it's got to be somewhere in New England.
Yeah. I posted that I was watching Crystal Skull, and one of my friends who owns a restaurant in New Haven said the only thing that movie ever was a deterrent to tourism in our area. I was like, all right, yeah, you're pretty right. But it was awesome seeing, areas that I know as they rolled through the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But we're not here to talk about that. We'll be here to talk about that on another episode.
No.
And believe
will we?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Listen, I pick series so that way I know I have further work. Tom can't fire me if I have other episodes.
Shouldn't we have gone around to the front of that? Like, shouldn't we have started with
no, because this is the best
original
one.
Raiders?
We started with the best one.
Yeah, fair. So we'll go to the worst one, which could be Dial of Destiny. We don't know. I think the pattern, though.
I've seen some reviews that say it is so far, so I'm a little scared.
Well, I was gonna say the pattern, though, like I said, was the first movie felt like a chase or a race. The second one didn't. The third one did. The second one, the fourth one, So like this feels like that 1, 3, and 5 should be the good ones, just mathematically. It just makes sense. So. When they're at the school and we get to see how like all the co-eds love Dr. Jones, and then he jumps out the window and
That's
and then
gross, by the way. That's really gross. Rewatching that, it's very uncomfortable.
He jumps out the window to leave. He's on his way out, and these men stop him and they take him to meet Donovan, who is going to be like the financier. Isn't that stereotypical, though, that the guy who brings you in is the guy that's going to turn on you? Or am I wrong on that?
I mean, if people are grabbing you and bringing you to somebody, it's usually the big bad. Like,
Yeah.
Good guys don't usually bring you. Although, Secret Invasion...
Don't talk about it yet, no.
I'm just saying that. That's all.
No, sir. No spoilers. So they go in. They take him to Donovan's, and he's got all these antiquities, and he introduces him to the. Basically, he baits him into, hey, I've got all these pieces to get you to the cup of Christ. This is going to happen, and we'd love for you to do it. And he keeps coming back to the whole, you got the wrong Jones, blah blah blah, and then the reveal that his father was the first one they went to, and now he's missing, and now Indy's got to go and help find his father while also trying to find the Holy Grail. So he's he goes back to his house, finds that, or dad's house, finds that it's been ransacked, tells Marcus to get him a plane ticket, and then Marcus is like, I'll get two. And then they decide to fly, and then the old school map thing comes up, and I'm just like, I love that scene.
Traveling by map.
Yes, exactly. Right. I was looking to see if I could find it pretty quickly, but yeah, it's pretty awesome the way that they do that, because
John's to Azores. I'm trying to. I was watching the path this time to see where they like how far a plane could go, because Patrick and I were just talking about how far prop planes could go the other night.
Oh yeah.
And then they're also showing that Indy's reading the book and trying to absorb everything that was in it. So again, now we know by the time he lands, he's an expert on the diary that his dad has sent him. And then when he gets to Venice, Venice, he gets to Venice, and they go into the library to find the X marks the spot. At first, it was again, the directing was amazing, because you know now, because you've seen it, it's on the floor. And they teased it earlier because X never marks the spot. And then now you've got the director has this upward look, and you don't see the floor. And then he's looking around, and then he goes up high to see it. And the first thing I was thinking was, well, why did he go up high to see it? That's dumb. And then they show it later, and you can't really see it from the ground. I feel like I mean,
can see.
Yeah.
That's
oh, sorry. Only the penitent man shall pass. Anyway, so they're in the library looking through all the Roman numerals, and they find X marks the spot. At this point, Elsa's just way too anxious to go and find this thing, isn't she? I mean, like, Patrick, isn't that like a red flag at that point, that she's just like, oh wow, let me lower me down into this hole? I don't know.
Indiana does not pick up on some serious red flags. He's obviously not up to date with his TikTok trends. But how do you not know the super hot, very blonde lady is a Nazi? Like, come on. It's written all over her. It's just a big
her
red
name,
Nazi
the
flag.
accent, like...
Yeah, come on, Indy. Man.
Well, I guess so, if you say so. But I mean,
could have been one of the Von Trapp. She left Austria. Who knows?
Yeah. Here's that look, though. See what I'm saying is, like, from a directorial standpoint, like from the ground up, like you don't see the ground at this point. And then he looks around, and they're all looking around like when we're looking for Bean Bunny in Muppet Vision. Bean, like they're just looking around, and then he sees it on the floor, but he has to kind of do a double take, and then he sees the steps and goes up. So I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, couldn't he just point to it? But then when you see him, and somebody mentioned the stamp bit, Tony did, the stamp bit later, where it's like hits the stamp, and then the Kong. Yeah, that bit is pretty funny. But when he's banging on the floor, you see for half a second from the floor level that the X isn't as prevalent as I thought it was. I'll show that here. So he's put the hole in, and they back away from it. Look, see, you can't really see it as well there.
Yeah.
So they like it was on point. I love that part.
And going back to how we're saying, like, this inspired a genre of film, this is basically ripped directly in National Treasure. They do almost this exact thing with the tomb in the crypt. I did not realize that until the rewatch of this.
Well, and as this is happening, like, I feel like, okay, does it need this extra layer of baddies, like the guys who are protecting the Grail? Does it? Like the same thing I said about the Raiders of the Lost Ark and Big Bang, where they like Indy might not have been needed. Did these guys do anything that would have kept the Grail from being found? Ron, you're thinking about it.
I think they have some purpose to the story. They keep us from knowing it's the Nazis for the first half of or first third of the film, being the big bads. They do serve as a distraction for a plot point later on, so they do serve a purpose. Could that purpose have been worked in another way? Yeah, it probably could, but they're not just there for no reason.
Yeah.
Dan
Okay.
Brown probably really appreciative of them because he made a butt ton of money because of
I was going to say
of
Dan
this
Brown too.
idea.
Yep, I was going to say
Yep.
Dan Brown as well. Dan Brown, National Treasure, and Mummy were the three that came to mind. But I feel like I've
Well,
seen
the
this.
Mummy
The
ripped them
Librarians.
off completely.
Oh yeah, because it was very little about the mummy and more about the artifacts and everything. What do you think about the cheesy line when he walks into the room and he goes rats? I'm like, you're better than that, Indy. I don't know. No.
I don't
Um,
know. As somebody who's afraid of snakes myself, when I see a lot of rats and mice like that, I'm pretty excited because I know there's not snakes around. I see that many rodents, I'm like, cool, I'm in a snake-free zone.
yeah, that's what that says
Yeah,
to you.
that's what that says to
I
me.
mean,
Okay.
I'd be more concerned with the torch dropping embers into the oil-soaked water that keeps happening in
Oh,
that scene.
I
that
wondered that
bothered me
too.
so
I wondered that
much.
too. Yeah.
So much on this viewing. I was like, wait a minute. They had a torch that whole time.
Plus,
I've
he falls into it. He falls into this petroleum, and then he gets up and he immediately lights this torch. Like, isn't he going to be burned up? I don't know.
I mean, it's
I
got to
guess
be
it's
just on
suspension.
top of the water, is what I'm assuming. It's not like they're not in oil the whole time. Like it's got to be like
Well,
just
yeah, because
a floating layer.
yeah, I mean, I heard that oil and water don't mix. That's the thing that I've heard.
But watching all of these movies, if you try and follow continuity on these things, you're gonna really hate some of the stuff in these movies. Uh, there was like one I noticed in Raiders for the first time. They're talking about the height of the staff, and they say it's like 6 feet tall, but then you take away 1 foot for the Hebrew god, and then Indy's holding the staff and it's towering over his head when he's in the thing. But apparently, the original script said add one for the Hebrew god, and so when they changed the line in the movie, the prop department was already done with the prop.
I mean, it's not hard to whack a foot off of something. Just,
I guess so.
yeah.
What are you
I
gonna say, Patrick?
I stopped reading the goof section of IMDb a long time ago because it's a lot of people being nitpicky. However, the oil in the water and the not lighting on fire did, in fact, bother me.
Yeah, that same. I mean that, and plus the fact that they just destroy everything in their path along the way. I mean, this is like years, like thousands of years of history, and like, why didn't he take the shield? I get he was trying to run for his life, but the shield he could have carried, and that's a huge piece of history. And they turn. I mean, I get that survival mode, but they like this guy who was like this hundreds of year old knight, just his crypt, they just throw it to the side. These guys who are supposed to protect all of these things just burn it down. It's
I
just
don't
like,
think that's their intention. And it's usually the bad guys doing the destruction. They're just kind of caught in it.
yeah, okay, lots of destruction, but I guess that happens. Maybe they need their own version of the Sokovia Accords. I mean, there's going to be damage in the wake of anything Indiana Jones does, right? Does he never get litigation? Come on, Ron.
Indiana
What?
Jones would 100% be Team Cap in Civil War. Just making sure we're all clear on that.
Yeah.
And he's very pro punching Nazis, which is, great to see in this day and age.
There's a lot of scenes in this, by the way, that I felt like what I'm seeing they're actually doing. That was the other thing too, is like from a stunt standpoint, there were things where, like, I don't think that's Harrison Ford there, but I mean,
He did a
that boat
lot
looks
of his
like
own
it's going
stunts
pretty
for
fast.
this.
Yeah, yeah. I
A
mean,
lot of his own stunts.
and
In
a lot of
fact,
them you
wasn't
you actually
90
see
yet.
them. Yeah,
Yeah. The stunt. He's a really famous stuntman from England, and he said that if Harrison Ford wasn't such a great actor, he would have been an amazing stunt person. He had to go and try to convince Harrison Ford not to do a lot of his own stunts, that they were a little too dangerous for him, but he was in there doing it. It's awesome. That's that old school movie star mentality. I mean, Tom Cruise still does his own stunts, and one day he's going to plummet off a building, but until then, I'm going to watch Mission Impossible.
yeah. I this scene, by the way, I love where he's got him and he's like trying to threaten him, and he's like, my soul is prepared. How's yours? Kind of a thing. I just like
I like him
love
as a
that.
character a lot. I didn't remember him, but I liked him as a lot.
Yeah.
I remember him being more in the movie, honestly, when I watched it this time. Like,
Me too. Not
but
him, but oh my god, the other two sidekicks, Jonathan Rhys Davies and I can't think of the other guy's name, but I
The guy
thought they
that
were
plays
in it a lot
Marcus?
more when I was a kid. Yeah.
John Rhys Davies, I think he wasn't in the second one, but there would be no reason for him to have been in the second one. Or am I wrong on that? That he was
No,
not
you're
in
right.
it? I don't think he was.
yeah, I mean, technically,
and
we don't know if he knew him at that point since it's a prequel.
So then they go back and they find that the rooms have been turned over, and so then they're gonna follow all these clues in Dad's book, and this is the first time that Elsa finds out that he's got the book. By the way, this whole ruse that she throws, where she trashes her own room first, I don't believe she has the sneakiness to do that. Like, she doesn't seem like she's. I feel like she feels more pawn-ish in this movie. Am I wrong? Like, she's not diabolical.
It doesn't seem that much of a weird plot. Or just even back when I saw it when I was 9 years old, it surprised me that that little record player could have covered that noise that supposedly would have happened with that trashing of the room.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I don't think Elsa's a pawn. I think she's running her own game, and I think ultimately she's at the mercy of a lot more powerful forces than herself. This to me screamed like Humphrey Bogart. Why did she have to walk into my town? Kind of
Casablanca?
serialized. Yeah, very, very detective. I mean, I know that the whole MacGuffin thing is very much a big influence on Indiana Jones, but this felt very like in all the towns in all the world, kind of that's detective-y pulp kind of stuff. And real quick, my wife watched a little bit of this with me, and she's like, "Oh, I don't remember Indiana Jones being so campy." I was like, whoa, slow down a second here. I'm like, this is not camp. I'm like, Rocky Horror's camp. This is not camp here. This is a balance of drama, action, and comedy. It's not campy. I just need
Speaking of
it's pulp.
comedy / camp or whatever you want to say, this scene right here. I mean, come on.
It's amazing.
Harrison
is camp.
Ford doing this one. Yeah, this is camp
All
right here.
She might be right. This is campy. All right, I apologize.
Sneezing in his face. This is just shy of Get Smart right here, my friend. I mean, come on.
Yeah, all right. I do believe this is actually when she was watching with me too, so she may have had a point. She is much smarter than me, but she doesn't get to defend.
That's a
herself.
British sitcom bit right there.
Yeah, coming in pretending to be between. But the line, if you're a Scottish lord, I'm Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse.
Right. And it felt like it was dubbed in. I mean, it's classic, but it felt like it was dubbed in. Maybe I'm wrong.
They could have not liked the accent of the actor or something like that too.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford would have made a great Scrooge McDuck, by the way. Just really. Yeah.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Well, let me ask you both questions. We'll call it trivia. We'll just call it trivia.
I almost said a bad word. Do you know how upset I am? I was enjoying the movie, and I only look for trivia in movies that I'm not enjoying. So let's see how terrible this goes.
What was the first word said in this movie?
Bum, 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 bum.
Not a word.
Could be a word. You're a word.
It's when the kid falls off the horse, right?
He says dismount. The leader says dismount. That's the first word. What was the name of the circus?
Dunn and Curry or something like that. I saw it, but I can't remember.
Dunn and Duffy Combined Circus. I don't know what the combined circus is. The ship that they were on when he recovered the cross. Do you remember as it was going down?
I can see it in my mind's eye, and I
Right,
do not.
because as it's going down slowly,
Does
you
it
could see it.
springs to mind?
Oh,
Go ahead and say it. He clearly knows
Coronado.
it. Yeah, it's Coronado.
lollipop. I was way off.
When he goes into the whole deal with his class and the office hours, he has a secretary. What's the secretary's name?
Miss.
Probably. Irene, I don't think you would have gotten that one. That one's too deep. This is easy. You ready for this one, Patrick? You will know this in a second flat. You ready? This
You're
is really
making
easy.
me
I swear.
curious.
I swear. This is so
Okay.
easy. He has a cigarette lighter. What's on the side of the cigarette lighter?
A Shamrock.
There you go. See, I knew you would know that one. That one. That one was easy. When Indy shows up and Pops finds out that the diary is with him, who does he say he should have mailed it to?
The Marx Brothers.
That's right.
Oh yes, yeah.
That's right. I just thought that was so funny. It's like
Uh,
I should have mailed it to the Marx Brothers.
we
I
said
bet.
before we came on the air.
I know.
we're
No,
not
no,
doing
no
that
Connery.
bit.
No Connery. Sorry,
No
my bad.
Connery.
No, you know who I was doing is I was doing the Scottish Lord impression. That's what I was doing.
I can do that one.
I wouldn't ask you this as a trivia question, but I thought it was weird that the plane that they stole off of the blimp said DEKVY, like real big everywhere on it. And I was almost going to ask you that, like it's across the top and across both sides, and I don't know, like the hubcaps, it was like everywhere. It just seemed like it was. I don't know if that means something or not, but I thought that was funny.
I was
That's
trying
all
to
I've
look
got
that.
for you.
I saw that too. I was trying to think if it meant anything, but
Yeah, we can't do it without some trivia, Patrick. But a couple of them were gimmies, right?
Oh, Ron crushed it. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was going to ask when it opens up. They open up in where in what year? But I don't think you would have gotten that. It says at the bottom.
Utah,
that-
1912.
Did you write that down? Why do you know that?
No.
No,
You
because I
don't-
specifically was trying to. That was something I paid attention to this time, trying
Okay.
to remember how far. And I'm like, did it pass yet? Because when we're talking about with the fake out reveal with the, with the wannabe Indy in the beginning, that it doesn't open on the time period. It comes up after that, and I specifically noticed that when I watched it last night.
Gotcha. Patrick, would this movie have been as good if Sean Connery wasn't his dad?
No. No. This is absolutely pitch perfect casting. And I don't know, man. Sean Connery is one of the most talented individuals, and God bless him for staying retired and not coming out for boatloads of money that they offered him for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I don't know, man. Connery's great. Is this his best role? Because
Untouchables.
really,
Untouchables.
no.
Untouchables.
Listen. He has
Untouchables.
tons of roles where he's fantastic, but I don't think we get to see the depth of character and just how excellent his comedic timing is as a whole. I know he's an amazing actor, but this feels like the full circle kind of for him.
No, he is really good in this movie, and like sometimes he's not saying anything. Like when he's in the sidecar, and he's just not, and he's just got his like suitcase, and he's got the umbrella, and then the thing where he's like, goes and chases the birds, and goes, "I suddenly remembered my Charlemagne," and then,
Yeah.
and then the bit where he lights. He lights the floor on fire, and he's like he's like, yeah, somebody else did that. I mean, it just the timing of him in general, and when he just like decides to sit down, and then he opens up the staircase. I don't know. I think that he does so much great acting without saying things in this movie.
Yes.
And whether it's comedic or whether it's serious, when he's laying there dying, and he's like trying to like go, the penitent man, like he's like doing that. I mean, it's amazing. I still think Untouchables is the best one, but I don't disagree. This was amazing. That's why I was asking. Like him and the reveal, and again the reveal, right? Everything about the directing, the reveal is we don't know who his dad is on purpose in the beginning because we don't see him when young Indy walks into the room. We never see his face, and then even when Indy swings into the room to find him, we see the shadow first. And it's just like they went to such great lengths to make sure that we were introduced to him the right way. And he pops up. He's like, Junior. I mean, it was so good. Anything else casting wise about this, Ron, this movie that you thought was spot on? I mean, I feel like this is basically the two of them share this movie equally because they're both so good in it. But I don't know.
And I think it gave Marcus a lot more. Like Marcus was in the first one, but very
Yeah.
briefly. Gave him a lot more character to this. Uh, I love Sala in both of them, and it was so good to have him back in this. Um, Although I don't know how many times I made watching it with my wife last night. I made, and you have my axe jokes, but um, yeah, I think it's just good casting. It's good. Even just the character actors that fill these roles. I can't remember but I know whoever played. I can't remember his name. Donovan or the lead Nazi. They're just great at it.
Donovan
Because,
is Julian Glover, who's also in Star Wars.
yeah, and whoever the lead Nazi is, he cams it up just enough to be the great villain. Like you don't want him to play
Yeah.
like a
Well,
strict
okay.
not like you want him to over the top it, and he does.
What about this scene? You ready? What about this scene?
Yeah, it's super uncomfortable.
This is the one scene you could cut, honestly. Yeah,
Yep.
Like,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, but I mean, like, why? Like, why? I mean, to show that this was
someone
the
watched
time.
that and wrote Forrest Gump.
I guess,
That's what it felt
I
like
guess.
to me watching it again. It's like, oh, he's just in the middle of everything.
But also, like, this weird, like, subplot of we have to go to Berlin to get the book, and it's just basically to show us what's happening there and make that, I guess, real in this
I don't
world.
know, man.
I think you get a little more about Elsa from that whole exchange with
Yeah.
him and
Because she's
her.
watching the book burning?
Lets him- you see her that she's not committed to the Nazi cause as much, I think, by the way her reaction to the book burning.
Yeah.
And that she lets him take the book without, all I have to do is scream. She just
Yes,
lets him take it and go.
that is that's another great line. That's another one I was quoting. He's like, all I have to do is squeeze. All I have to do is scream. And it's just like, what? That's just for some reason, it's so powerful that it sticks with me.
They keep trying to redeem her in just enough to keep you guessing what she's going to do next.
Yeah, Nazis aren't redeemable though, so that sucks for her.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are a couple of scenes in the movie that seem like a little less than great. As much as I'm talking about like the directing and how great it is, there were some of the scenes in it that I don't know if it was the effects weren't ready for the time or what, but like this one right here, like where you see like basically the green
very
screen
obvious
around the
blue
dude.
screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like there's
Well, you
that
had
scene,
the
and then there's
compositing
good.
issues in. I know at the time, like when you're doing that kind of compositing, like when they talk about it when they redid the special edition of Empire, how doing any kind of green or blue screen against a bright background never comes out right, and you either have these really hard lines like you do that, or you have to turn down the opacity on the foreground, which is why if you watch the original cuts of Empire, you could kind of see through the windows of the speeders. So it's a problem with the thing, and I'm kind of glad they don't go back and fix that. I mean, the same thing with the aging scene, him going over in the tank, and going back to the melting Nazis and Raiders.
That's the one I was gonna bring up though, was like that one where they're taking off in the blimp, and the other one where he goes over in the tank. I was just like, you've gone to a lot of trouble to show his face in this scene, and it's just so fake looking.
That's a practical effect. Well, that
that's the part I'm talking about. No, the tank is great.
I was like,
just like
that's a practical effect though. Until then, yeah.
But do we need to see that part? Like, I feel like there was, I hate to compare this to the Lizzie McGuire movie, but I will. I will. This scene, I will. I'm gonna. Is that there was a scene where they show her from the back inside the Colosseum in Rome, and it looks like it's like 18 different effects to make that happen, and it's just like it was only for a second, and it was just like, why did you bother? If you couldn't pull it off, cut it. And that's the same thing about the guy coming down, or him just shaking his fist at them taking off in the blimp. Like we didn't necessarily need to see that, and it just kind of looked bad. Whereas the rest of this is, as you've said, Patrick, so beautiful. Everything else is just just so right. Go ahead. You want to say something though?
Practical
I'm sorry.
effects
No,
are
Ron
better.
does. Go at Ron.
Go ahead, Ron.
I'm thinking.
Practical effects are better, but digital compositing made those practical effects better as well. So, like the analog compositing, where you would have to put two frames, that like definitely those could be done better today. But having those models, even though like when you're talking about how good it was when the tank crashes at the bottom, the little model of the guy is still holding on for life after the turret falls off.
Yeah.
Like there's some things that could have been done better today, but certain parts of those practical effects still always look better. And I think we've seen a little bit more of you might do digital background ships, but you kind of still want to do a practical model for your like hero ships and stuff in movies.
Yeah, Patrick.
They really did a great job with what you're saying, like the combination of practical and adding some digital in the mix of it. You know me, if you've watched any amount of Deep in the Plus on this network, I always will prefer practical effects. I love practical effects, but I see totally what Ron's saying. I'm getting an education. That's why I like doing this stuff with Ron. He is very, very smart and knows what he's talking about. So now I'm thinking about how all the composition of the shots with the practical versus the digital, because that really cool shot with the plane going into the tunnel is a mix of blue screen models and I think they said they shot the sound effects in a garage in Skywalker Ranch. So there's just so much going on in that scene. Yeah, it's just really, man. But I like practical effects because you're going to another level in your filmmaking. You're not just typing something up on the computer, and I know it's a lot more difficult than that. Like Spider-Verse is incredible, but it just feels you're living in such a different world. There's something to it that's visceral. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Ron is saying
in the chat.
That's what I was going to say.
That it's not so much the effects. These weren't shot to be in high def, to be in 4K, and some of the digital upscaling they do those if the prints aren't in great shape, or even just the prints in great shape, making them 4K digital for us. It's not going to hold up. Like, all right, I'm assuming this is one we all saw in theaters when it first came out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
I vaguely remember. It's definitely possible. I'm much younger than both of you.
It's the first one. You're 2 years younger than me, I think. It's the first movie I remember going to see multiple times in theaters, and specifically because my brother wanted to see the 70 millimeter cut, because this was one of those ones they had in different formats coming out before there was the IMAX and the Dolby and all that. This specifically, like most theaters had the 35. This was released in 70 millimeter, and my brother specifically took me to go see that, and which is why I'm going to, like, whenever I see a 70 millimeter, I think the last one that did something like that was Hateful Eight had the 70 millimeter special showings that weren't in the mainstream theaters, and now Oppenheimer's going to have that.
I was going to say Oppenheimer's doing it. I have a bunch of friends who are making a pilgrimage to New York to see that version of Oppenheimer.
I got to find out if my IMAX is going to have a 70 millimeter.
Yeah, you know what you're talking about there. Like I saw in IMAX, I saw Beauty and the Beast in IMAX, and that was one, again, the original. They brought it to IMAX for its anniversary, and you could see, like, when they show the town, like some of the people were literally just like stick people. Like they didn't do any, like that, those background pieces when they were doing hand drawn. Yeah. When you then blow it up for something like IMAX, you're just like, wow, they really pulled one over on me before, because I thought it was perfect. And I mean, I guess they only did what they needed to do.
We've talked about it a bunch, the matte paintings, and how it still kind of holds up at points in time because it's just so well done. Adding to the critique of the art forms is when the Disney hand-drawn animation randomly throws some digital effects. I recently watched Hercules with my daughter, and the Hydra in a right. hand-drawn movie, the repeating Hydra digital effect, the CGI, oh god, it sticks out. Or the tower, when the tower falls on Aladdin when he's exiled, it's just like, oh, this looks completely different than the rest of the film. So yeah, it's definitely age and space and the upscaling of it all.
Not to call it campy, but they do a lot of gags in this. There's like the gag where the gag where he shoots the gun and it goes through three guys and they all kind of fall over to the wayside at the same time. Why
Maybe
are you making that
remember-
face?
I remember when after that came out, and we would play in the, when we were kids, we played with fake guns. Not like our kids don't, but like we had, all the different things. And everybody, I remember after that movie came out, no, my gun's a Luger because it can shoot through you. I
Well,
specifically
obviously.
remember that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So there are all those little gags, and then we finally, through the whole thing, we finally get to the Holy Grail. I mean, they get to the part where they're going to go through these trials, which is why they had to go back and get the book. And they go through the trials, and Indy makes it through all three of them, whereas none of the others could have made it through. It's kind of like when you're trying to get past that first boss level on a video game and you can't, and then it's like you do it 90 times, and then all of a sudden you can do it and you get through it. And that's kind of how this was. And he's got the book.
All right,
and
I have a problem.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I can't imagine you wouldn't. So go ahead.
All right. So when he steps on the J and they show a stuntman dangling, the letters that were attached to it also would have just crumbled away. That really bothered me. Apparently, in the original shooting script, it was supposed to be a tarantula came and crawled on him, but they thought that wasn't large enough scale. But he steps on the J and is able to hang on, but we see when he missteps and his heel clips another brick that they fall. So he would have just fell right there. That bothered me.
Also, if they were doing the Latin alphabet, why would there be a J in the first place?
Well, it's there to trick you, I guess. When was it made? I don't know. That's a great point. That's a
It
really
was
good
made
point.
1,000
Now I'm
years
more mad.
later, but they were, yeah. But one of the things I had always wondered is how did Elsa and Donovan get past? And you see them. And this is one of the things I noticed on 4K. I was talking about is like the scene where he's about to start walking across it. You could see them behind him in the
Yeah.
4K version, just kind of peeking around. Like there was always a shot of them going through the blades after he goes.
Yep.
But you could see them as he's making his choice and describing how he's going to get across. You could actually see them skulking in the background. I'm like, wow, that's one of those things I love about these like some of the effects don't look so great, but those details you could catch in the 4K.
Well, and that makes sense as to why they would have been so close behind him. He didn't even have a chance to tell the guy, "Hey, this is what you're about to, these bad guys are coming."
Someone
but
in
of
the
course-
chat said also, who resets the stones? I don't know if anybody got that far. I don't think anybody had made it past the penitent man part. So I think that's at least a little more believable.
Although after seeing so many people, like seeing a pile of decapitated corpses, you think somebody would have crawled through at that point.
Well, but I mean, it's more like that scene. It's more than just like you'd have to bow down. You've got to be a stuntman at that point, right? Because when the blades come up, it's not just if I was on my knees, I'd be okay, because there's two blades here
down
that he's
and
got
then
to.
up.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not just that. Because
And
if you were
how
just like,
the cobwebs were still there and all that, but let's
Yeah.
let's just skip some points.
yes,
All right,
it's fine.
I came with a very valid complaint, and then we went into the IMDb Goop section. Let's keep this train rolling.
No. Anyway, yeah. So they go into the cavern. They meet the knight. So Elsa chooses the wrong chalice on purpose, we assume, because
Yes,
of the.
100%.
I mean, yeah, because she knows. Yeah, and there's a piece where she's actually like watching right here, like, aha, I got him. And then, as you said, Ron, like the aging scene, it feels like, again, like Raiders, like the whole thing with their like face melting off. And then all of a sudden he gets blown back to the wall. How did that happen? I guess he pushed him off of Elsa, but he just like
Yeah,
seems to
I
get blown
think
back
that,
to the
yeah.
wall.
I think that's what he's kind of like Heisman trophying him.
Separating them,
that
yeah.
traumatized me as a child.
Oh, I can imagine.
That's right up there with Large Marge, man. Just
That, but
super
see
scary.
that, but you had no problem with them opening up the monkey brains and eating them, or like none of
That
that stuff from the
stuff
first
never-
movie. Okay.
No.
All right, no, I'm just asking. I mean, it's not like those things give me
Snake stuff.
nightmares.
Any
but-
snake stuff really when I know they're real snakes, I can't get in the heebie-jeebies just thinking about them. But then when the python that looks like it's straight out of a carnival pops
Right.
out, I'm like, what is that? I'm terrified of snakes. That's not scary.
Yeah. By the way, one thing that always bothered me, and I guess it shouldn't, is when he goes and he gives his dad like the water, and then he pours it on the wound where there was literally a bullet, and then it starts to sizzle, and then like, is it peroxide or is it water? Like, which is it? I don't know. And then now the bullet's inside him because it didn't get rid of the bullet. Like,
I
where's
feel
the
like it should have popped out. I 100% felt like it should have popped
Yeah.
out.
right?
Had that discussion last night with Laurel. Yeah, and it also
Right?
shaved
Okay,
his
so
chest
not just
in that
me.
area.
No, definitely. I also think
So-
they didn't do enough to keep him alive while Indy's going through there. I'm like, there should be more people putting pressure on that wound. Yeah. Medicine.
Okay, so
What's this line from Reservoir Dogs? A gut shot hurts like hell, but it takes a long time to kill you.
All right.
So when this movie is over, they ride off into the sunset, and everything is great, and the final finished. Why did we need to
Wait, you
revisit
skipped the
this
part
later?
where Elsa couldn't let it go.
See, here's what I hate about that. First of all, that's so cheesy. I can't believe you just said that. Secondly, she drops down, and then he drops down and does exactly the same thing. I don't know. Should we just?
Thrall. It's
no,
the thrall, man. Haven't you played Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, there's-
the Grail has a thrall to it. It's trying to make you get it.
There is something about it that just draws you in. And I wouldn't have made the joke except the first line said to Indy afterwards is "Let it go."
Let it go. Yeah. Whatever, dude. You feel good about yourself? You feel good about yourself? I'm asking, Ron. You feel good about yourself?
Man, I'll tell you though, when he's calling to him, it wrenched at my heartstrings at that scene when he's reaching for the cup. It's like Connery's the timbre in his voice. It's just perfect delivery, and it invoked the
It's
emotion.
the most emotional I've ever seen him in anything, I think.
And it's the first time he calls him Indiana too, and so
Yes.
like you as
Yeah.
the person who's watching this, like you go, like
Yeah.
Papa. Yeah, it's really strong. Yeah, absolutely. So again, where I was going with this before Ron frozen us is the fact that they ride off into the sunset. It should have been the perfect ending to it. And at
What did I
some
text
point,
you?
you're like, I love the age where you didn't have the post-credit scenes.
Yeah, I was like, I did not need to worry about Indiana Jones will return because this is over, and
Yeah.
then it's not. And
Just has such a nice bow on it though, and it just I don't know. I would have been okay with this. I've talked about this before. Some things I want to see continue. I want to see more Bond movies. Even if it evolves, I want to see more Bond movies. The same thing goes for other series, but for something like Jack Skellington, which is, Nightmare Before Christmas is one of my favorites. I don't need to see a sequel 20, 30 years later, right? I don't need to see another one. Didn't necessarily need to see it. Now, don't get me wrong, I will go see Dial of Destiny, but like, I don't know, it just felt like this one had a nice bow on it, and it should have stayed what it was, but that's just me. So,
I think
anything
if they
else?
continued it closer, I wouldn't have felt so bad about things like Crystal Skull being different in that. And because I think it's a serial, you could have just had him gone on everything, even though it kind of implied he's semi-immortal now after drinking from the cup at the end of the thing. Like,
Well, and Crystal Skull is 19 years later. From that last one. So the first movie is 81, the next one's 3 years later, the next one's 5 years later, and that one was 19 years later. So I hope that the next one, Dial of Destiny, does it justice. I hope that it does a lot of fan service and wraps the whole thing up, because he has said, this is it, we're over, this is done, there is no more of me as Indiana Jones.
can I bring a topic into this late in the game?
Yeah. Sure.
Indy's better than Han, right? Indy over Han.
Yeah. I think so, because I think Han,
different characters, but
I think Han
they're
is part of a
definitely different.
team, and Indy is kind of like the man. I don't know.
Yeah, I just If I'm going for Harrison Ford parts, I'm going with Indy over Han.
Yeah. You're going working girl?
I mean, Indy is the lead, and Han's not the sidekick, but he's not the main hero.
Yeah. So, anyway, Kingdom of Crystal Skull, and now we have Dial of Destiny. Where does this franchise go next, Ron? Like, once Dial of Destiny is over, that's supposed to be the end. Do we do some kind of somewhere between Young Indiana Jones and Indy, like on Disney Plus? Is there going to be a new series? Are we going to reboot it? What's going to happen?
I think if the Dial of Destiny is what I think it is, like, I think there's some time manipulation obviously going to be involved in it, and this is just pure speculation. I'll be at the, city 24 hours from now, I'll be sitting in the theater. So I think there's going to be some time manipulation that gives them the opportunity to kind of reboot, sequel it if they need to, if it works, and, be able to put a younger actor in, or, spin off with
E.B. Waller-Bridge.
Phoebe Bridger-Wallace, is that who it is?
Yeah, Waller.
Yeah. Waller,
So, yeah.
yeah. I always get her confused with the singer Phoebe Bridgers. So,
I mean, it's an amazing IP. Doesn't necessarily mean there needs to be more. There's other things you can do with it in video games and park attractions and all kinds of other things that it doesn't have to have more to it. But I can't imagine that they won't do more to it. And the funny thing is, we associate it a lot with Disney because there's the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular in Florida, and there's the amazing Indiana Jones and the the Forbidden. What is it? I'm like, what is the one in with Mara? Temple of the Forbidden Eye. I was getting Forbidden Journey and a whole bunch of things mixed up in my head, but yeah. But I mean,
Magic Journeys? And the completely unrelated, just random coaster in Paris.
I was about to say the Paris roller coaster. So I mean, it's been associated, but it was a Paramount picture owned by Lucasfilms. And so it wasn't really a Disney thing, but it's been associated with Disney for so long that once the Lucasfilm purchase came through, it felt like it was home, right? Chewie, we're home? Can we? No? All right. So when we see like this come together, and I don't know, I'm glad that it's on Disney Plus. I'm glad that we have these now that we can watch. They should have been on from the beginning. One last comparison I would make is Jungle Cruise feels a lot like it's Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Because it was like, it was one thing and then it became this sort of supernatural weirdness.
Endlessly more entertaining than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Facts. We did a review of that, you and me, so that was good. Anything else we want to talk about here?
Men.
True. Anything else we want to talk about here before we move on to the final say? Ron, anything else?
Just, it's really hard to use a bullwhip to swing on anything. I've tried.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
My parents got me a bullwhip when I was 13. I tried to, swing from branches and stuff. They don't really stick.
Yeah. Patrick, are we good? We can move into finals?
I just want to say that we, much with all entertainment, we owe Indiana Jones to Edgar Rice Burroughs and John Carter.
Okay.
You can't even tell if I'm kidding or serious, and I think that's the best part.
I think Alan Quartermain preceded him, didn't it?
Don't make me do math.
Well, you know what?
I'm
The
not
other
sure
thing we
who
didn't.
wrote Quartermain.
The one other thing we didn't talk about was the John Williams score.
Oh my God! I meant to talk about that. Better than Star Wars. Getting it right out there. Better score than Star Wars.
I think there are
the Indy Sting. Mwah.
Right, and they use it at just in all the right places in the movie, which again goes back to the how well the movie is made. It just feels right when they do it.
Although I will say this, with some of his stuff, I was humming one of the Indy theme the other day and found myself finishing up with the Superman march because it just there's a few notes in them that just
Yeah,
transferred
no,
straight to it.
100%. I agree with you on that one. They are kind of the Superman one is kind of hard to find that dun dun dun. Like, I mean, because they do feel a little similar to
Did you
Jurassic
catch
Park
the
and
Imperial
Indy.
March in this movie? They play a sting of the Imperial March real quick when we meet bum 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 bum. Why can't I think of his name? Wallace? Yeah, Donovan. When we meet Donovan's wife, there's a quick sting of the Imperial March. Yeah.
That, you know what? Just a random thing that when we met Donovan's wife, and she says something to him, and she looks over at Indy and kind of like this kind of thing, and then we pan away and we see that Indy's not even looking at her, and I was just like, "What? Were you overacting that scene?"
She is Julian Glover's wife. That's his actual wife. Yep.
That's what I was going to say, was like, are you overacting that scene? Because like she's like, like, you know, oh, like, nice to meet you kind of a thing, and he's not even looking at her. So yeah. All right, so then thank you guys for watching. I'm excited about the Dial of Destiny. I hope it's great. I hope it's not disappointing. But I'm glad we revisited an indie movie before we go into this. If you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to WDWNT TV. Stick with us for lots of great content. We've got News Tonight on tomorrow night, and then we will be on hiatus for the 4th of July for Park Center, and then back full throttle on July 9th. Don't forget, there is an event in Florida, the Unscrupulous 16, for the 16th anniversary of the network. So if you're in Florida, check that out. And then a big thank you to our WIGS members. We love our WIGS, the WDWNT Interglobe Society. Thank you guys for being part of the family. If you want to learn more about it, go to patreon.com/WDWNT. But now, here is the moment. And I don't think there's any surprises. If one of you throws me a curveball on this, I will be shocked. Last week, Katie threw me a curveball on The Reluctant Dragon, and I was not expecting it. But I got to ask first to Patrick Hackett, would you, sir, recommend this movie?
Please go watch this movie. In fact, please force young filmmakers to watch this movie, because there's a lot that can be learned from this. It is a master class in directing. Maybe not in editing, as we kind of talked about here. Could have been a couple more creative edits. I should have edited that. But please go watch this movie. You don't need to watch Crystal Skull. I guarantee there's not going to be anything relevant in Dial of Destiny that you needed to see Crystal Skull for. Go enjoy that movie. Hopefully it's good. If not, you can just pretend it ended here. And go watch Young Indiana Jones. Fantastic. Really grew up with that show. Go watch it.
Gotcha. And Ron?
100%. This is the best of the trilogy, I think. I think they're all good, but I think this is a culmination of what they wanted to do with these, and it's well acted. And yes, there's scenery chewing and stuff, but it works. It follows everything the movie wants to be, and it accomplishes it. And that's what makes it a great movie more than anything. It knows what it is. It has fun with it. It didn't want to be, the Oscar winner. This wanted to be something you're going to sit down and watch on a Saturday afternoon and just be content.
Okay. Yeah, and I've said it all the way through this. There's no surprise. This is my favorite of the Indiana Jones movies by far. I love this movie. I love Sean Connery in it as Indy's dad, and because he was Bond, and because of how great an actor he is. This is by far my favorite. I will sit down and watch this any time. Raiders is a good movie. It's the one that started it all. Temple of Doom, I don't care for it too much. And Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I swear I've probably seen it once. So for this one, this is the one that I would turn on all the time. I quote it. I love it. I think it's great. It's funny that Patrick would say you could just stop here, because I think that when Desi and I reviewed Toy Story 4, we said you could stop at 3. It seems like the same thing. Like it was, we love Indy and we love to see him, but I think it could have stopped right here and I would have been just fine. So I don't know what that was.
Indiana Jones and the Quest for More Money.
True. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for doing the review. I appreciate it. We'll be thinking about all this Indy stuff when Indiana Jones shows up at Disneyland on the 30th. That's going to be exciting. And when No, it's not. It's going to be
They get
it's going to be
everything.
horrible.
No, I'm upset. Watch Park Center to hear me rant about Disneyland gets everything and Walt Disney World gets Bupkis.
Well, I mean, there's a guy playing Indiana Jones every day at Disney World.
Yeah, just bring him out so I can meet him, get a picture, shake his hand,
Yeah,
feel his whip,
do that.
go on an adventure.
What was
a
that
lot of
last
plans.
part? What was that last part?
Nothing. Nothing. Legally, I have to say I'm joking. Hi, Josh.
Ah, good times. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching Deep in the Plus. We will see you again next week. Have a great week.